Hello everybody, this is your Digital Super Saiyan 3, and here's a new video this is actually a top 10 list I've been working on since last fall, but I hadn't gotten it done until recently because I've been putting it off because I was so busy. But, yes, with my trip to Walt Disney World coming up, yes, that's right, I'm going to be going to Disney World this weekend. I decided to do this. I decided to finally get my head in the game and actually do this list. And counting down my top 10 favorite Disney villains. Now, the villains of Disney are just incredible. They're evil, but also at the same time, they can also be incredibly hilarious at times too. So yeah, they can be a blend of both threatening and hilarious. And I figured I'm going to be doing a list of my top 10 favorite villains in the Disney Pantheon. Basically, my favorite main studio Disney villains from Disney's animated features. So, yes, here's a few ground rules. 1. This has to have been a mainstream Disney motion picture. Second, no direct-to-video sequel villains. So yes, villains that appear in Disney direct-to-video sequels will not be appearing on this list. Third, no Pixar, because this is basically me talking about the main studio. And fourth, no Marvel or Star Wars or any live action. This is strictly animated. So this is my list of my top 10 favorite animated Disney villains. And sorry for the tone of my voice, I was just recovering from being sick, I've been having this chest infection. So, sorry if my voice sounds a little nasally right now, but don't worry, I'm feeling a lot better. It's just, yeah, it's still bugging me a little. On to the list. This is my list of my favorite animated Disney villains. And starting off the list at number 10 is Lyle Tiberius Rourke from Atlantis the Lost Empire. This is basically the most underrated villain in all of Disney. I think he's just a well-written villain because his motive is profit over people. He definitely embodies the dark side of humanity's greed, of wanting power and money, but mostly just riches in general. Rourke is willing to kill off an entire race of people by stealing the heart of Atlantis and planning to sell it to the highest bidder. Throughout the movie, they hinted at Rourke being the main villain really well, and when it's finally revealed, it just hits you hard. And during the film, he does get his stuff done. I mean, after all, he steals the heart of Atlantis. He basically is responsible for the king, dying of internal bleeding after he assaults the king. He took the king's daughter hostage, and she is bonded to the crystal. Rourke was only stopped thanks in part to Milo and his friends. Anyway, I love Rourke and the way he is portrayed. I love how at the beginning of the film he just has this kind exterior towards him, but then when we get into the reveal of him being the villain, it just hits you so hard. He was just well written into the narrative of Atlantis. And I give credit to James Gardner, who voiced him. I love some of the quips that Rourke does during the final battle he has against Milo. He definitely embodies the might of the perfect yin-yang to Milo. I mean, Rourke is strong. he's an expert in firearms, and not to mention, he's a well-rounded fighter. While Milo is just really skinny and, he's really nerdy. Which is a great contrast between Milo and Rourke. But Milo ends up beating Rourke, thanks in part to Milo slitting Rourke with a piece of glass that was irradiated from the crystal, transmortifying him and making him shattered into a million pieces. But still, I enjoyed Rourke during his run in Atlantis the Lost Empire, and I thank James Gardner for the performance he gave as Rourke. Number 9. Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. Okay, I kind of like this villain, and I kind of enjoy his performance by Keith David voicing him. Yes, Keith David, the same guy who voiced Spawn in Spawn the Animated Series, as well as Goliath and Gargoyles, also lent his voice talents to Facilier. I love this voodoo witch doctor and how he's willing to try to make his friends from the other side happy by offering up the smorgasbord of souls in Louisiana once he gets his hands on Big Daddy LaBeouf's money. Yes, he tries to mastermind the assassination of Tiana's friend's father by trying to execute Big Daddy LaBeouf with a voodoo doll and attempting to kill him on the spot. And yes, he was planning to use Prince Naveen as the perfect pawn by containing an amulet with the prince's blood and transforming the prince into the frog. Yes, he also does his job well of setting the events of the movie in play, and he is a great foe throughout the film as he sends his friends from the other side to try to get the frog back. But of course, what really ups the ante with how great this villain was his murder of Ray. He steps on poor Ray after swatting him, and then just gives this cheeky look. Then, of course, there's his final confrontation with Tiana over the amulet, where he tries to manipulate Tiana into giving him the amulet. But Tiana's like, no, I'm not going to give you this amulet. Despite everything Facilier said was true. Yes, that Tiana's father never got to follow his dream because he passed away before that could happen. But Tiana said, but my daddy had everything he wants. Me and that he needed. Me and my mama. And of course, yes, it led to Tiana smashing the amulet and leading to Facilier being dragged away by his friends from the other side. And yes, he is a great villain and had a hell of a great villain song with My Friends on the Other Side. With Friends on the Other Side as a great villain number. And yes, his voodoo and hoodoo and things he's never tried make Dr. Facilier such a unique and interesting foe. Number 8. Shan Yu from Mulan. Now, yes, there are a lot of people who probably don't put Shan Yu as one of their favorites, but I kinda do like Mulan's villain Shan Yu. I mean, this guy is willing to declare war on an entire country in the first act of the film by invading the borders of China by scaling the Great Wall with his army. Then, by declaring war on China, he forces the Emperor to send his best troops. And he does this because the Emperor, by building the Great Wall of China, challenged Shan Yu's strength. And of course, Shan Yu has to have the most massive kill count of any Disney villain on this list. Because he's killed countless people, including Shang's father, as he wiped out General Shang and his company before Mulan and the other recruits could finish their training. I love how most of the movie, Shan Yu has this really quiet, reserved voice that's just so cold and brutal. And not to mention, he has a falcon that rides on his shoulder. How is that not cool? Shan Yu doesn't need to be such a complex villain. No, he just needs to be brutal and menacing, and that's what Shan Yu does throughout the film. His whole fight is with the entire kingdom and country of China as he's trying to lay waste to all of China. But only by being blown up at the end by Mushu and in a plan concocted by Mulan does Shan Yu get blown up? Or defeated, I meant to say. That he gets defeated by being blown up thanks to a plan concocted by Mulan and Mushu. Number 7. Jafar from Aladdin. Okay, Jafar is probably one of the most iconic villains on this list. But even I gotta admit I enjoy listening to Jafar's voice. This really suave and slimy voice done by Jonathan Freeman. As well as that psychotic laugh he does. I mean, and not to mention how he starts off the film as the Sultan's royal vizier or advisor, but scheming to take the kingdom of Agrabah and everyone else by force, behind the Sultan's back. No longer wishing to be a quote-unquote footnote. And of course, he has been concocting the plan to get his hands on the magic lamp. And yes, he does end up getting his hands on the magic lamp in the third act of the film. We see him become a sorcerer, and we see him begin to use dark magic. Sure, beforehand he was using manipulation and tactics to try to get his way. But when he finally has Iago steal the magic lamp from Aladdin, and when he finally gets the lamp, he uses it to try to make himself a sultan. But then, because the people of Agrabah won't bow before their new sultan, they would have to cower before a sorcerer. And Jafar turns himself into a sorcerer.
Maybe be a bit more comfortable with my seat.
And during the final battle, after revealing Aladdin was was Prince Ali, with the Prince Ali reprise that he gives. Yeah, although it was a brief number, although it was the shortest musical number in the entire 1992 film, it was still a lot of fun to listen to. When Aladdin returns to Agrabah after digging out the magic carpet, he goes back to make things right as he takes on Jafar in one final battle for the fate of Agrabah. And in this battle, Jafar ends up turning himself into a snake. And then when Aladdin tells Jafar that he's just second best, that the genie has more power than he ever has. And then, of course, Jafar uses his last wish to make himself a genie. An all-powerful genie! Of course, it ends up biting Jafar in the behind when he gets imprisoned in his own magic lamp with Iago. Yes, it does lead to the events of the Return of Jafar movie, where he did return in a sequel. And not to mention, Jafar's made countless other appearances besides his appearances in the Aladdin franchise, including the likes of House of Mouse and Kingdom Hearts. And yes, there is a reason why Jafar is at the forefront of the Disney baddies. Anyway, yeah, I just love Jafar no matter what. And I just love his laugh, so there's that. Though the one thing I really wish I could do with Jonathan Freeman is just try to emulate that laugh that Jafar gives. Number 6, Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, I like Yzma. And it's all thanks to her voice actress, the late great Eartha Kitt. Who basically gives the right amount of insanity and the right amount of sarcasm to Yzma, as she is both insanity and sarcasm combined. With her quest to try to take over Kuzco's kingdom and try to become the Empress. And yes, she's another royal advisor character that's tried to take over the throne. She tried to use a vial to try to poison Kuzco, but because her labels got mixed up and Kronk gave Kuzco the wrong vial, well, yeah, it led to the events of the film, where Kuzco is turned into a llama, and Yzma and Kronk set off to try to kill Kuzco themselves before Kuzco could come back and talk. And if Kuzco talks, they're through. Eartha Kitt is definitely the best part of this movie, as she plays Yzma very well, bringing the sense of sarcasm and craziness. And not to mention, it's really kind of refreshing to have a mad scientist villain in a Disney movie. Keyword, in an animated Disney movie to be sure. While Jafar tried to take over Agrabah with the use of magic, Yzma tried to take over through the power of science. Well, her crazy mad science. But yeah, like all Disney villains, her defeat at the end of the film, she is turned into a kitty cat. But even as a kitty cat, she's still hilarious to listen to. I guess because I just love the chipmunk effect they put on Yzma's voice when she's in kitty cat form. Bottom line is, Yzma's just the most. Yzma's just one of my favorite villains, no matter what, and she's one of my 2 favorite female villains. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to the other ones soon. Number 5, King Candy, aka Turbo from Wreck-It Ralph. This is the only villain on my list that's from the 2010s. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate a lot of the baddies that came out of the 2010s era of Disney movies, but the one that just truly sticks out is King Candy, aka Turbo. Now, when we learned his backstory in the middle of the film, Turbo was a racer from a popular video game called Turbo Time. But when a game called Road Blasters was stealing his thunder, Turbo wasn't having any of this, so he game hopped into Road Blasters to try to show those boys what's what. Of course, Mr. Flitwalk closed down both Turbo Time and Road Blasters because of Turbo's actions. However, it's revealed throughout the rest of the film that Turbo never truly left the arcade even after his own game got shut down. He soon invaded the game of Sugar Rush and took over as its monarch by ripping out the code of its ruler, Vanellope von Schweetz, who was the princess and monarch of the game. Basically, it's because of him that Vanellope was an outcast, and he tries to prevent Vanellope from racing. Because he knows that if Vanellope crosses that finish line, everything he has done to build himself up would be erased and the game would be reset. He knew this, and he would easily be able to manipulate Ralph into helping him. Yes, he was able to manipulate Ralph into helping him. Just so he could keep up this charade and this false monarchy of his. Because if Vanellope were to cross that finish line, the memories of the natives of Sugar Rush would be restored. And they would remember that Vanellope was part of the game. All because King Candy, aka Turbo, tried to delete Vanellope's code. Anyway, Alan Tudyk does the voice of King Candy / Turbo, and he does this really well. He could do really well as both the comedic side of King Candy, while also representing the more threatening side when Turbo has his final battle with Ralph up top of Diet Cola Mountain. As Turbo takes over the body of a insectoid that ate him during the final race. Of course, Ralph does end up defeating Turbo when he breaks open the mountain, unveiling a giant beaker of light by making the Cola volcano erupt by having the Mentos drop into the volcano below, leading to him being fried crispy. Like I said, Alec Tudyk's performance as King Candy / Turbo was just incredible and very hilarious. Now, we come into the top 4. now we come into the top 4. Now let's see who takes the top 4 spot. First, at number 4, now we come to my absolute favorite female villain of all of Disney, and it had to be none other than the mistress of all evil herself, Maleficent. I like Maleficent. She is a wingless green fairy, sure, but she's just got this really unique design. And out of all the villains that came out before the 1990s, Maleficent has to just be my favorite classic villain from that era of the Silver Age. I mean, she curses a baby at the very beginning of the movie by making it so that by the time the baby reaches the age of 16, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. All because she wasn't invited to a party by the king and queen. Sure, the king and queen did order all spinning wheels to be burned, and while most of the spinning wheels in the kingdom had been burned, that didn't stop Maleficent, as she soon learned that the child had come home, thanks in part to the fairies being clueless with their magic, as she had sent her pet raven Diablo, to search for the baby. Because her idiot henchmen couldn't do the job right. And of course, when she sends her henchmen, and when they return to the fairies' cottage, Maleficent and her minions ambush Prince Philip at the cottage. And then she imprisons Philip in the dungeon of her castle, then taunts Philip by telling him that the girl he met was actually the girl he was supposed to marry. And then was planning to have him be imprisoned there until he was an old man. And then, when Aurora would have been awoken, she would reject him, leaving him dead and heartbroken. Oh yes, she was going to plan to keep him there for 100 years. It was lucky Philip was saved by the fairies, and the fairies giving Philip an enchanted sword and shield, leading to an epic escape scene from Maleficent's castle, only for Maleficent to take matters into her own hands and transform herself into a massive black dragon. Leading to one of the most badass final battles in all of Disney. Only to be impaled through the chest by the sword of truth that makes sure that evil dies and good endures. Now, Maleficent in the movie was voiced by Eleanor Audley, who also did the voice of the wicked stepmother in Cinderella, or shall I say, did the voice of Lady Tremaine in Cinderella. Yes, she did voice Lady Tremaine in Cinderella just 9 years earlier, because this did come out 9 years after Cinderella. Ugh.
What's your daughter's name? Which daughter's name? Sarah.
But like I said, Maleficent just steals this movie, and is kind of one of the reasons why I actually put Sleeping Beauty as one of my favorites. Mainly because of Maleficent herself. as she just kind of steals every scene she's in. Good on ya, Mistress of Darkness. Number 3, Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback in Notre Dame. Alright, so now we're getting into the top 3. And I gotta start with Judge Claude Frollo. Voiced by the late, great Tony Jay. Judge Claude Frollo... Well, this guy is an absolute monster from the moment he steps foot on screen. He makes it very clear that he will do anything and everything in his power to destroy the gypsy race. As he has a genuine gripe against the gypsies. Of course, he is forced to take in a misshapen child after killing his mother. Oh, hold on.